Today, though, hair loss adverts promising unrealistic results are targeting young men, with some procedures delivering damaging consequences. This has led the British Association of Hair Restoration Surgery to call for greater regulation of the industry. Tim Muffet has the details.
My name's Jerry. I had a hair transplant in 2015. The whole experience, to be honest, was terrible. You're wanting to kind of better yourself and make yourself feel better, for then it only to be way worse, than all I've got is regret.
Jerry started losing his hair in his early 20s. Newspaper adverts helped convince him to pay £9,000 on a transplant.
What were the adverts promising you, and what did the clinic promise you?
A full head of hair, that's why I went in. I paid for front to back, and so planted from here all the way to the back of my head. I was screaming in pain, saying that I could really feel this.
What do you feel about the results you have now?
I think they speak for themselves. They're just shocking, absolutely shocking. Straight away I had a big patch in the front of my head and just a line across where the new hair was planted. And then the patch is starting to get bigger. You can see all the scarring. There's the nerve damages all around the top here. It's like a brain freeze the whole time. It's horrible. Just a constant pain.
It's thought a fifth of young men experience hair loss by the age of 20. It can have a huge impact on self-confidence and self-esteem.
I find it increasingly common that people are seeking to have these kind of procedures even earlier, at a younger age. Perhaps it's also because of the number of celebrities, actors, footballers who are having it done and making it public.
Bessam Farjo says he's increasingly being asked to correct botched transplants.
A hair transplant, whichever technique we use, relies on moving hair roots from the back and the sides of someone's scalp to the top. If you do too much too soon, you end up with visible scars. Putting the hairline low, you end up with a look that doesn't look natural.
At Dr Farjo's clinic in Manchester, a client's undergoing transplant surgery.
We're at the part of the operation that determines the design of the transplant. We make tiny little cuts in the skin at a particular angle, in a particular direction, and at a particular depth.
So without that, that's when transplants can go wrong?
That's when the appearance of a transplant can go wrong.
There are a lot of clinics where it's not the doctor making the incisions in the skin. It's a non-medically trained person. There need to be steps put in place to change that. It's often seen as cosmetic surgery because it affects appearance, but hair loss from male and female genetic patterned hair loss is really a medical condition.
Done properly, the procedure can boost hair growth and self-esteem, but a bad hair transplant can be an expensive, painful mistake. Tim Muffet, BBC News.
Now, let's get a bit more detail on this. Joined in the studio by Doctor of Psychology, Becky Spellman. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for coming in. I know that you sort of carry out some psychological assessments on men who are thinking about this procedure. What sort of things are they talking to you about?
So surgeons send people to me to do psych assessments when people are considering having this procedure done. So I'm looking to see if people have body dysmorphic disorder, which can actually be quite hard to pick up on. So if someone really is determined to have this procedure, they might lie on psych tests, and then a report is produced and the surgeon thinks that a person is psychologically fit to have the procedure, when actually they're obsessed with their appearance and they may go on to focus on other areas after they have this procedure done.
Okay, and in terms of those men who are being sent to see you, have you seen a rise in that? Is it quite a sharp rise? What's happening?
Well, I do receive a lot of referrals for all cosmetic procedures. There is a lot of young men coming, but I think it's really important to understand the psychological impact of young men when they are losing their hair. It's not just men who suffer from low self-esteem who are affected by this. Actually, men who are otherwise quite confident can really experience a lot of shame, embarrassment when they start to lose their hair.
And in terms of, we talked about adverts sort of targeting young men in particular. Has that, do you think, had an impact when you're having those assessments? Is that something that's mentioned?
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate. There's what I would call predatory advertising, where actually you can target men of a certain age on social media. You know that they might want to have hair transplant procedures, and then they're seeing these ads all of the time. So unfortunately, marketing is so advanced in this day and age that they are going to be influenced by this advertising. So it's not that people shouldn't get it done, but they have to think really carefully about it and do a lot of research beforehand.
And I would imagine not everybody having these sorts of procedures will have a psychological assessment with somebody like you, which is why some people are calling for it to be a medical treatment rather than a cosmetic one, which would then bring it under far more regulation. What do you think of those proposals?
I think it needs to be regulated because particularly young people can be very impulsive. When people are thinking about having a procedure and they realise it's now socially acceptable, they might know a lot of people who've had it done, they might just go straight to the first clinic, maybe a really affordable clinic, maybe going abroad. And I don't have anything against people going abroad, but you have to do a lot of research, ask a lot of questions, make sure there's accreditations where the doctor actually is accredited by certain organisations that are reputable, speak to their previous patients, see a lot of pictures, and don't make that decision impulsively.
OK, Dr. Becky Spellman, thank you very much.